Alright, hey guys, I'm Rebels TCG and I'm back with a new video. So with this video, I'm going to be going over the new archetype that has been announced for Power of the Elements. This is called TEARALAMENTS. I think it's the way it goes. TEARALAMENTS Meru is a Dark Aqua effect, level 2, 800 attack, 2000 defense. So if this card is normal or special summon, you can send the top 3 cards of your deck to the grave. And if this card is sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck by returning fusion materials listed on it from your hand, field, and or grave to the bottom of the deck in any order, including this card in the grave. So it looks like this is a very generic card. Being able to mill 3 cards from the top of your deck is interesting. I think we're already going to be able to see this fused. Depending on the other cards, I'm guessing the other cards are going to be like mill oriented. And if there's cards that benefit from milling, such as Lightsworn or maybe like Infernoids, I could see people trying to build something with this. Just being able to mill some cards and have some plays through the TEARALAMENTS, depending on what they're able to do. But yeah, and this card just serving as a generic fusion card is pretty nice. Especially you're just gonna be able to send the fusion material. The fusion material you already have available from you from either through your milling or from your hand and field, and being able to get an extra monster zone out of it is pretty cool. This looks like it's going to be more of a generic archetype that can be stapled into other decks. And yeah, let's continue. This looks pretty interesting so far. When your opponent activates so this is a level 3 Dark Aqua effect monster. When your opponent activates a monster effect on the field, you can special summon this card from your hand. And if you do, send the top 3 cards of your deck to the grave. So again, this is just another mill, but the mill is when your opponent activates a monster effect, you can summon it out, and then mill 3. And then if this card is sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck by returning fusion material listed on it. So it's the same thing as the other ones. But this one is like an on trigger. Like this one's if it's sent to the grave by a card effect. So typically, if you're going to be milling it, that's when the effect is going to actually trigger. But yeah, looks like another way to mill. Again, looks like depending on the fusion monsters, looks like this is going to be more of a deck, an engine you can put into different decks. And here we have TEARALAMENTS Shaylin, which is a level 4 Aqua Dark. You can only use the first and second effect of this card's name each once per turn. During your main phase, you can special summon this card from your hand. And if you do, send one monster from your hand to the grave, then send the top 3 cards from your deck to the grave. So, this one at least doesn't take your summon, since you're able to just, summon it from the hand. So that's good to see. And then being able to send one monster from your hand to the grave, depending on what other decks or what other archetype you're running in the deck, if you choose to do so. It won't really impact it too much because they want to be in the grave. And then again, milling 3 is great. Of course, you can also just use send like this TEARALAMENTS Huffiness, because when this card is sent to the grave, you can fusion summon. So again, just some synergy there. And if this card is sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can fusion summon from your extra deck. So same thing as the other ones, it looks like. Basically, it's just a bunch of you won't need to run polymerization, since these cards are able to fuse on their own. If it's possible, if they get milled. But yeah. And here we have TEARALAMENTS Reino Heart, which is a level 4, 1500 attack, 2100 defense. If this card is normal or special summon, you can send one TEARALAMENTS monster from your deck to the grave. So again, this is more of like a Foolish Burial for the deck, which is pretty cool. They all pretty much. I don't think it matters like specifically which one is sent, depending on the fusion monsters. If they require a certain one, then maybe it'll be relevant. But if not, you could just use it to send whatever TEARALAMENT monster, and then from there fusion summon. But and then if this card is sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can special summon it. And if you do, send one TEARALAMENT monster from your hands to the grave. So this is different from the other TEARALAMENTs where they trigger a fusion summon, but this one, when it's sent to the grave, it instead lets you send one TEARALAMENT monster. It lets you summon itself, and then you're forced to send one TEARALAMENT monster from your hand to the grave. So it's just like more of a cost in order to summon it back. But yeah, looks like this is going to be more of your Foolish Burial for the deck. And here we have TEARALAMENTS Kikalos, which is the Dark Aqua fusion monster. Here we have one TEARALAMENTS monster plus one Aqua monster. If this card is special summon, you can take one TEARALAMENTS card from your deck and either add it to your hand or send it to the grave. So you're able to fusion summon this card if you want to. And once it's summoned, you're going to be able to just send a Taylorman's card from your deck to either add it to your hand so you can continue doing some plays, or send it to the grave, and then from there you can either fusion summon or it can special summon itself, such as Taylorman's Reno Heart. And you can target one monster you control, special summon one Taylorman's monster from your hand or grave, and if you do, send the targeted monster to the grave. So again, it's going to be a way to just trigger more of their effects, and being able to special summon one Taylorman monster from your hand or grave could be relevant, since I think there's 2 Taylormans that trigger an effect when they are summoned onto the field, and such as Taylorman's Reno Heart, and I think the first one was able to do so too. Yeah, if this card is normal summon or sent or special summon, then you send the top 3 cards of your deck to the grave, so you can do that. And if this card is sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can send the top 5 cards of your deck to the grave. It's the same thing as the other Taylormans, where if it's sent to the grave, you are able to mill 5. And of course, this can be used in tandem with instant fusion, as you're able to use instant fusion to summon this guy out. And then at the end of you can either use some sort of a card effect to get it, to get this card to be sent to the grave, so you can mill the 5, or you can use wait until the end where instant fusion destroys it, and then you get to mill the 5. So yeah, interesting. I could see this being used like in decks outside of Taylormans if they want to use instant fusion as a way to just mill a bit more. It'll definitely work better though if you just run it with Taylormans. But yeah, interesting to see there. And we have Taylorman's Kaleido Heart. So this requires the Reno Heart plus 2 Aqua monsters, which the Reno Heart was this guy, which was the one that was able to use, the one that was basically a Foolish Burial. And if this card is special summon, or if another Aqua monster is sent to the graveyard by a card effect while this card is on the field, you can target one card your opponent controls, shuffle it into the deck. So pretty good removal. When it's summoned itself, it's just able to remove a card from the field. It is a target effect, but that's okay as long as it's not destroying. It's still good to see. Really good removal. It sucks that it targets, but still, it's a decent line of removal that just triggers on summon, or or if another Aqua monster is sent to the grave by a card effect while this card is on the field. So that's cool to see. And if this card is sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can special summon it, and if you do, send one Taylorman's card from your deck to the grave. So if a card effect happens to send this card to the grave, you can still bring it back, and if it's outside of the first turn that you summoned it, you're able to use this effect again, and then you can just send one Taylorman's card from your deck to the grave. So again, just giving you more value for your cards there. So pretty cool line of support here. Pretty cool just way to synergize with the deck, and yeah, looks decent to me. And now we're going to the spells here. So here we have Pareno, the Primal Parallel Ruined Realm, which is their field spell. You can only activate one card with this card's name once per turn. And then the third effect, you can only use it once per turn. When this card resolves, you can add one Taylorman monster or one Visa's Starfrost from your deck to your hand. So Visa's Starfrost, I think, was the monster that was with I think it was with Scareclaw. I think that was the archetype that worked with this card. So it looks like Visa Starfrost is going to be like a bridge to like multiple archetypes. So that's interesting to see. And kind of similar to, I guess, like Fallen of Albaz I've seen. I guess it might be like centered around the lore. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, being able to search out a Taylorman's monster or Visa Starfrost seems decent. And then fusion monsters and Taylorman monsters you control gain 500 attack. So, okay, just a little boost there. That's okay. Since it has like 2 other effects, that's an okay bonus. And if a Taylorman monster is returned from your field and or grave to the deck, or extra deck, you can target one card in the field, destroy it. So of course, this is like based off when you use the effect of fusion summon, you're basically able to pop an extra card, which seems pretty good. Just being able to free removal once per turn is cool to see, and it's a search. So this is a really good field spell, and it's just a nice little bonus here. I think this is a good field spell here to see for this deck. And here we have Taylorman's Metanoise, which is a normal trap card. You can only use one of the first and second effect of this card's name per turn, and only once per that turn. So you can only use one of these effects. If you control a TEARALAMENTS monster or Visa Starfrost, target one face of monster your opponent controls, change it to face on the defense position, then send one TEARALAMENT monster from your deck to grave. So it's a Book of Moon if you control a TEARALAMENT monster or Visa Starfrost. But it's also a Foolish Burial. So that seems okay. Just being able to generate some value, as when you send the TEARALAMENT monster, you are also able to fusion summon when it's sent to the grave. So that's cool to see. And if this card is sent to the grave by a card effect, you can target one TEARALAMENT monster in the grave and add it to your hand. So again, if you're using like all these milling effects, you can just and you happen to mill this card, then you're able to just target a TEARALAMENT monster in your grave and add it to your hand. So again, getting more value once you're milling. Pretty cool to see. I can see a lot of like TEARALAMENT monsters kind of being dead in the beginning if you don't have a lot of material in the grave, but once you set it up for a fusion summon, then you're able to do some plays there. But yeah, here we have TEARALAMENTS Salic, which is a continuous trap card. If you control a TEARALAMENTS monster or Visa Starfrost, you can target one effect monster your opponent controls, negate its effects, and send one monster you control to the grave. So this looks like it's going to be a sort of like Fiendish Chain. That's just, yeah, it looks like more of a Fiendish Chain type card. That does force you to send one of your monsters to the grave, but of course you do get value once they're sent to the grave by a card effect. You're able to trigger whichever effect of whatever TEARALAMENTS monster you sent. So again, a good way to generate some advantage, as well as negating one of your opponent's monsters. And if this card is sent to the grave by a card effect, you can add one TEARALAMENT monster from your deck to your hand. So again, you just generate value. If just like this card, you generate value if you happen to mill it by accident. And here we have TEARALAMENTS Crime/Climb, which is a counter trap card. You can only use one of the first and second effects of this card's name per turn, and only once per turn. So you can only use one of these effects. So it's just a way to prevent you from using, getting too much value out of these cards. When a spell trap or monster effect is activated while you control a TEARALAMENTS monster or Visa Starfrost, negate the activation. And if you do, shuffle that card shuffle that card into the deck, then send one monster from your hands to the grave. Again, this is pretty good. It's an Omni Negate for the deck. A lot of decks seem to be getting these Omni Negates built into a counter trap. We've seen it with like Yang Xing. They have this. I think Madoche has one too. Or I think for Madoche it might just be a monster negate. But yeah, you see like a lot of these negates built into a counter trap. And yeah, it's at the cost of you sending one monster from your hands to the grave. But of course, depending on which monster you send from the hands to the grave, you're probably gonna be able to generate some value out of it. But yeah, I can see this deck already being like independent on its own. Maybe just add like a little bit of other cards to beef it up a bit, since it only has like 2 fusion monsters currently. But yeah, this seems decent. And then if this card is sent to the grave by a card effect, you can target one of your banished TEARALAMENT monsters, add it to your hand. Again, another way to just generate value if it's sent to the grave by a card effect, but not as a way for you to you can only use one of them, so you're not going to be crazy over like advantage if somebody happens to like use a Harpies or something, and then you activate this card in response. Well, it wouldn't work exactly with this one, but like with one of these, if you happen to just trying to generate some value through this card's effect, second effect, then you're not able to do so. So it's a limiting way in that sense. But this looks like a decent archetype. I'm interested to see like what it has to do exactly with the lore. It's definitely a milling based stack, but not like exclusively milling. It's just sending. I guess it's not exclusively milling, as you're mainly just gonna be sending any card from anywhere to the grave, and that'll generate you some value. But yeah, this looks like a decent like archetype. Depending on what other future lineup support it gets, I can see it being even better. But at the very least, it's a cool independent little archetype that I can see people trying to fuse with other archetypes for its milling aspect. But yeah, what do you guys think of this archetype? Do you like it? Do you like the art for these cards? Do you think the mechanic is actually good and viable? Just let me know in the comments down below, and make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.